A boat does not need to be destroyed to become helpless. It only needs to lose steering. Since 2020, Iberian orcas have been recorded interacting with hundreds of boats. The damage sailors fear most is not usually a torn open hull. It is a rudder that stops answering, a stock bent sideways, a blade broken away. The boat is still floating, but it cannot choose its direction. In the last video, the rudder was the object. Here, the object gets narrower. Not every rudder sits the same way in the water. On many modern cruising boats, the working part of the steering system is a single blade hanging behind the stern. It is outside the hull, below the crew's feet, and there is often nothing in front of it. Steering is the boat. So the design question begins at the stern. Which boats leave the most important part of the boat where an orca can reach it? 72%. Monohull sailboats. In GTOA's dataset, they dominate the recorded interactions. Catamarans come next. The rest, motorboats, semi-rigid inflatables, fishing boats, are much smaller slices of the record. The rudder number is sharper. 67% of the rudders recorded were spade rudders, not a full keel rudder, not a protected barn door blade tucked behind a long keel. A spade rudder. The same records put the average boat around 12 meters, moving under 6 knots. That describes a very ordinary cruising yacht. Large enough to carry a serious steering system, slow enough to remain in reach, common enough to show up again and again. But a record of encounters is not a census of every boat that passed through the same water. Maybe medium cruising sailboats are overrepresented because they are more vulnerable. Maybe more of them are there. Maybe they report more often. The data points at sailboats. It does not rank every design. The missing number is traffic. Nobody has a clean count of every monohull, catamaran, motorboat, rib, and fishing vessel that crossed the affected zones during the same periods. Without that denominator, 72% cannot become 72% more likely. That is the trap. A boat type can dominate the interaction reports because it is common in the water. Or it can dominate the reports because contact with that design turns into damage more easily. Both can be true at once. The ranking does not exist, but the mechanics do. Once an orca makes contact with the steering, each design gives the force a different path. One blade, outside the hull. A spade rudder is common on modern production sailboats because it works well. It gives a light helm, quick response, and good control under sail. The compromise is where all of that control lives. The blade is carried by a single stock passing up into the hull. Ahead of it, there may be open water, not a fixed fin. The leading edge is exposed. Inside, GTOA describes the common construction as 2 plates, often filled with polyurethane, with reinforcement running down from the stock. That reinforcement does not necessarily reach the bottom of the blade. The deepest part, the part easiest to approach from below, is also the least supported. The blade hangs alone. This does not make every spade rudder boat fragile. It means the steering surface is accessible in a way older protected layouts often are not. If the contact point is the rudder, a spade rudder puts a lot of steering in one reachable object. The Moody 66 had the protected rudder.
A skeg-supported rudder sits behind a fixed fin.
The skeg is meant to take part of the punishment before the blade does. Against floating debris or a grounding, that can be exactly what you want. In the reported Moody case, the Orcas worked the rudder. The skeg held. It did not tear away. The force traveled into the structure where the skeg joined the hull, and the laminate around it failed instead. The skeg held. The hull broke. Protection did not remove the force. It moved it. That is the uncomfortable part of this design question. A more protected rudder is not automatically an invulnerable one. Sometimes the blade fails first. Sometimes the stronger piece asks the hull to take the load. The Moody 66 did not sink. A helicopter delivered a pump in time. That detail matters more than the label protected. Two rudders, both damaged. A catamaran has a simple advantage on paper. If one rudder is damaged, the other might still steer. Wide stern monohulls can have the same logic, but the water sees two blades. In one documented Amel 50 case, both rudders were damaged and the boat still made port. The repair was quick. Both rudders were replaced in a day. In other catamaran reports, the damage went far enough that steering was lost on both sides. The backup became a second place to hit. That is not a verdict against twin rudders. It is a reminder that redundancy only helps after one part fails. It does not stop the first contact from happening. A way home, if enough still works. A rib has no rudder to brake. On semi-rigid boats and some motorboats, the engine itself steers the boat. The lower unit turns, the propeller pushes in a new direction. There is no separate blade hanging behind the hull. In the Algarve, GTOA notes a different pattern. Whale-watching ribs were common there, and reported contact often involved the inflatable tubes rather than a rudder. Rubber tubes, not steering blades. A reported motorboat trial with Spanish authorities points in the same general direction, but the full details are not public. At sailing speeds, Orcas reportedly lost interest sooner and caused less rudder damage when the test vessel was a motorboat. Treat that carefully. It suggests exposure matters. It does not prove motorboats are safe. An outboard lower unit is still outside the boat. It still steers. It is just not the same object as a spade rudder. Half the boats that interacted had no damage at all in the early GTOA records. Among the damaged boats, most damage was minor. Scratches, dents, bent fittings, things that did not stop navigation. Severe damage was a smaller share, about 14% of all recorded events in the early dataset. The worst cases are different. In the well-described sailing boat sinkings, the danger does not begin with a hole punched through the side. It begins at the steering gear. The rudder breaks, bends, or tears away. Water then finds the opening left behind, the stock tube, the bearing, the gap where the blade passed through the bottom of the boat. Water enters from behind. On many production sailboats, the space aft of the last bulkhead is not a sealed watertight compartment. Once water comes through the rudder area, there may be no second barrier between that leak and the rest of the boat. The boat does not flood from below. It floods from behind, through the place the steering used to be. That is why a broken rudder can become something larger than a steering problem. Modern production rudders are not built to be indestructible. In a hard grounding or collision, a rudder that bends or breaks can spare the hull from worse damage. The design assumes an event. A rock, a log, a single hard strike. The European rule for recreational craft says steering and propulsion control systems must transmit steering forces under foreseeable operating conditions. It does not describe repeated contact from a large animal returning to the same small part of the boat. The regulation is not a prophecy, and the boat is not a weapon. It is a set of compromises: speed, handling, interior space, cost, maintenance, safety. The rudder is only one of them. But in these interactions, that one compromise becomes visible. The final answer is not that one boat type is doomed and another is safe. The safer statement is narrower. Some layouts leave the steering blade more exposed. Some can move the damage deeper. Some give a backup that may still be reachable. Some move the target from a blade to an engine or a tube. Then, the evidence stops. No dataset can yet prove what design an Orca prefers. The better question is what sailors and designers can change without turning the animals into the enemy. Can you remove the weak point without harming the whales? That might be the only design brief that actually matters. The ocean is stranger than it looks. Subscribe for more stories from the depths, and the next video is on screen now.